I'm Leslie Nelson, and this session is all about how to use Google Classroom. To make the session easier to follow, I've broken it up into 3 videos, with a 4th bonus video on how to integrate Tyler Sys and Google Classroom. If you have any questions over the session, please email me at lnelson@tps501.org. To access the resources for this session, please look at the Google sign-in form for this session and look at the resources section. There should be a bit.ly link there. Once you click on that bit.ly link, it will take you into a Google slide presentation. This Google slide presentation includes video links to all of the trainings that I will be taking you on today. It will also have some tips and tricks and some other resources that I've linked in that I find to be really good. It also contains step sheets for each of the tutorial videos, so you can review at the end of the session what you might have missed, or if you need another visual example of what to do with Google Classroom. Let's get started. To access Google Classroom, and I know that some of you may have used Google Classroom in a previous setting, or some of you are brand new to Google Classroom. But regardless, you are starting a new account here with Topeka Public Schools, and to access Google Classroom, you go to classroom.google.com. Once you get there, it will ask you to sign in using your TPS school email, and you'll need to do that. So this is just a kind of a temporary account that I have with my training sessions. And so I've already signed in and it has my email here. I'm going to click continue. And this is the important part. You need to select I'm a teacher. If you select I'm a student, it kind of messes with things and you won't be able to create a class. So I'm going to select I'm a teacher. And you're in. This is what your Google Classroom dashboard will look like. Before we get into creating a class, I do want to point out a few features just to get us started. In the left-hand corner will be the 3 lines that we like to call the hamburger. It's also your main menu. This is an easy way to kind of maneuver around your Google Classrooms because you'll have one for each hour that you teach, and they will be listed here. You will also see in this list any classrooms that you are a co-teacher of or a student of, because sometimes we use Google Classroom for PD activities. In here, you will also find the settings, and that's where you can toggle your email notifications. My suggestion is you just leave it alone while we're kind of going through the first few weeks of school, and then decide what kind of notifications you want and what kind of notifications you don't want, because Google sends you notifications for everything, which can be helpful when we're trying to communicate with our students. Now we're ready to create a class. You'll notice that it already tells you create or join your first class right there with a little arrow up to the plus sign. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to click the plus sign. We're going to click create a class, and then it opens up this menu. Now you need to give your class a name, and this is totally a personal preference. I usually like to start with my hour. Some people like to include the teacher name in it. I teach history at Topeka West, so I'm going to make a first hour history class because that's what I will have. First hour is a first hour U.S. history. And like I said, it's totally your preference on what you want to name your classes. Just whatever works for you. And sometimes it's a good idea to just kind of play around with this, make a practice class, and maybe have some friends join, some other teacher friends in the district join in so you guys can kind of practice. What I'm going to do next on the section part, this is where I put in the year, and this is once again a personal preference. I just like to remind myself, not just the year, I like to put in what semester it is. So this is going to be fall of 2020, and that's just once again to remind me of what semester this is, and it just helps with some other organization pieces. So I've got my class named. You can, if you want to, put in your subject. This is history. Well, okay, I can go to U.S. history. But this part, subject, doesn't really matter. You can put it in there if you want to. I am going to put in my room number just because it might help kids when they do get back to classrooms. They would know what room number you're in, and it's something I tend to fill out, so I get to put in C306. And then I'm going to click create. It takes a minute. And it will populate up your first class. There we go. All right, so you'll get lots of new messages when you create a class for the first time. It kind of takes you through these steps, so it's a good reminder of what these trainings are about. But this is what it looks like. Before I end this part of the training session, I do want to point out something that will occur in your Google Drive so that you're not surprised by it and you don't do something that might cause some harm to your Google Classrooms. I'm going to access my Google Drive by simply using the waffle in the right-hand corner and go to my Google Drive there. When you get into your Google Drive, you might have some other folders in here if you've done some other sessions, but the one thing I do want to point out is there will be a brand new folder called Classroom. This Classroom folder, do not ever delete. It can lead to some problems down the road with Google Classroom that it won't be good. I've had to help students with this. I've had to help teachers with it too. So just keep in mind when you get this, don't delete it. And one way I like to remind myself not to delete a folder is to color code it red, because to me, red means stop. And I can do that by simply right-clicking on the folder and then going down to change color, and I'm going to make it red so I remember not to delete it. And basically what it does is it creates a folder. So this is connected with Google Classroom. It creates a folder for each of your classes, and that's why I like to put that Fall 2020 on here. So when I go in here and I see all of these folders of all of these classes, I know what semester I need to go into. So that is my last tip on this portion of the Google Classroom session. Next, we will be talking about kind of the settings in an actual Google Classroom.